Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Chats Without Borders. This is a space where we're going to sit down with leaders and experts and some students from around international education space to discuss the international student experience as well as some tips and advice for how students can really thrive once they arrive in their study location. The goal of these is to give some informal and really relaxed discussion rather than something that feels really uh, highly produced or an ad for anything, right? It's really here to give you, the students and families, some sincere and honest insights into all that being an international student really has to offer. And I am really excited today to be joined by Sudhanshu Kashik. He is the executive director of the North American Association of Indian Students, NAAIS, and I'll let him talk a little bit about his background, and then we'll jump into it.
Hey, thanks, Wilson, for having me. Hi, everyone. Sudhanshu here. And as Wilson said, I am part of an organization called the North American Association of Indian Students. It's a fancy, complicated kind of title name, but we do something really simple. It's to help Indian international students have a community here, have resources, and just overarchingly have a support group no matter what, remote college town or urban metropolis city that they've chosen to study, live, and build their career at. And throughout which, we do things from happy hours to advocacy campaigns, through preparing students to helping them with job searches and referrals, and that entire bandwidth. And most of all, just to have fun, right? It's a growing population. We expect upwards of 5 to 600,000 collectively Indian internationals / Indian Americans to be studying at any given time in the United States, and to be able to provide those resources at a local level is something that's really exciting.
Awesome. I'm sure you'll have some really great insights, and it leads really well into this next part. So, one of the things that I mentioned in the intro, right, we want to highlight some tips and tricks and really just general advice, for international students. You obviously have a lot of exposure to international students coming from India. So, I'm sure you've got a lot of experience there. So, I'd love to hear, what are the top 3 or 4 things that you wish every student knew prior to coming here or just to get the most out of their studies?
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to bifurcate this into two really specific examples and two kind of broader tips and advices. So the two very specific things that you might have heard of, but something that I can't reinforce more of because we constantly keep getting questions, we keep getting kind of issues and circumstances where it really disrupts their education. So one is the idea of understanding your CPT, OPT, I-20, and what your visa allows, right? So generically, obviously having the documentations, updating those documentations, but understanding before you even get here, what your F1 visa allows you to do, right? What, CPT options do you have? What OPT options you have? Having a head start in that really helps cement and prepare you for the future kind of year, 2 years, and hopefully settling down in the United States, right? And we feel like we see so many circumstances where people aren't aware of the resources that they have. Sure, they know about STEM and the extension, but all the meticulous programming and kind of updating that's required as an F1 student, a lot of the Indian students that come in aren't aware of that because they've used extensive agent help to kind of get here to file all that paperwork, and now they're on their own because the agents back there aren't helping, right? So kind of making sure that you understand that when it comes to your F1 documentation, it's not just you're here, you're done with it, right? You have to constantly update it, whether you're taking part-time classes, whether you're doing full-time, whether you're doing an internship as part of your co-op, whatnot. So it's a variety of larger instances. The second thing in terms of specifics that I would kind of focus on is your health, right? That's something super integral and important. And a lot of students, try to be kind of cheap about, what sort of a healthcare access that they can get to, and kind of don't either get insurance or get like a cheaper alternative insurance provider, or B, they're not aware of what America's complicated healthcare system actually is, what it provides, and how it impacts you, right? And I think that one thing that I would really, implore you is to understand how complicated it is and to be prepared. making sure that, if you're going for the cheaper option out of the alternatives provided, are they actually covering you? Right? You won't, if you go to the emergency room, you won't come out with a $10,000 bill for, I don't know, a stomach ache, that sort of stuff. So just being prepared for that, and also understanding that over-the-counter medication is available. You don't need a prescription, where to get it, what it is that actually helps you. So just being prepared of that shift, that you kind of get when it comes to the healthcare. So those are like the two really specific things that I, kind of would want people to know of. Now, two broader kind of tips and advices. One is just be really prepared for the cultural shift, right? I cannot tell you, Wilson, how many students come to us or we hear of how they're having trouble adjusting, acclimating, whether it's to the colder temperatures, whether it's to kind of the remoteness. I mean, India is a hustle and bustle kind of environment. And so it's understanding, and whether it's even within the classroom, right? Figuring out, okay, how do people engage, interact, calling them by their, first name or the professor or whatnot. So these things really, really help. So adjusting to that environment, maybe understanding the culture, and there's so many resources and guides available to be like, this is going to be a cultural shift. It's going to impact your mood. It's going to impact your studies. It's going to impact your life. Just be prepared for it. Don't live in a place where you think, okay, like, hey, this won't affect me. I'm fine with it. Or when it does, be shocked by it, right? I think that if we're prepared, we're better adjusting. And, I can't tell you enough how many people end up transferring here or there because they just aren't able to kind of adjust. And I think, it's not too talked about, but depression is a real thing. Feeling left out is a very big thing. And that's something that we, want the conversation to take place in. So you all know that. The other thing that I would say is, while also taking into acknowledgement of that, is understanding your local environment and kind of tapping into the kind of resources available. So I'm not just talking about your college. And I know that sometimes when you go to grad school, when you ask the International Students Office or your specific club, either you get a welcoming response, or sometimes because they're obviously inundated with so many people, very limited resources, that you don't get the response that you expect, right? You're kind of used to this bespoke service with agents that are just because, it's in their best interest back home. And then you come here, you've given the tuition, you think, okay, like this is my family, this is my community, all that stuff. And sometimes you don't get that. And so what I would suggest is, obviously come to us, but more importantly, when you think at a local level, right? Understand that Indian communities have been established there, whether it's places of worship, whether it's actual just people that have businesses, etc. And they're more than happy and willing to kind of help out and support and kind of see who there is that you can kind of feel more at home at, right? I know so many examples of students who were going to Southern Illinois, and there's like 2 or 3 places of worship run by Indian members, and because their own university had very limited kind of clubs / kind of engagement with them, and Illinois, rural Illinois, Southern Illinois can be kind of like isolating. They were able to really find a community there, right? Really able to, whether it was festivals, whether it was support, whatever it was, the rural community really helped them that was already established there. So what I would say is that obviously try for your local campus community, see what resources are available there when you're going through, this kind of cultural shock, this difference, etc. And then if that doesn't work, don't be afraid to look outside of your campus. You will find so many different alternative people, opportunities, engagements, and people that really are willing to help out. And I think we take that for granted. So please, please, please make sure to just think, regardless of what religion you come from, regardless of what state you come from, you will find something for you. I think Indians are duly established all across the United States, and being able to just, kind of get their advice, get that familiar setting, and be able to kind of, close in that gap or help you with that cultural shock. I think those are some really broad tips that I personally think would help out, students that are coming in.
Yeah. And I think those are things, even the being prepared for culture shift, right? I came from a rural town and went to college in a big metropolis. So it was a complete change of pace. The hustle and bustle was completely different. I know NAAIS has a lot of resources. you talked a little bit about healthcare. You guys have a guide for that, right?
Absolutely. So it's free, nws.org/healthcare.pdf. And it's basically like your breakdown. It's kind of long, but a breakdown of exactly what you can expect to receive as an international healthcare student, what the differences are, and more importantly, the terminology, right? Medicine here is different than medicine provided there. So, and you can't just bring in and constantly bring in medicine from India, right? So what can you get over the counter? What will you need a prescription for? So we really breaking that down when it comes to kind of the ability to find more aid, more help. We're more than willing to kind of give advice on that aspect and kind of showcase what we've learned to them.
Yeah. And, obviously there's a lot there. So I'm going to try and wrap it in 4 points and then we'll wrap up here. So, right, really hitting on understanding the visas. Like visas are really complicated. So obviously there's a lot there. We just talked about the healthcare. The culture shift is real for absolutely everyone. And the resources. I mean, like you said, the schools provide a lot, but there's so much more beyond just what the schools offer that I think where NAAIS really is really exciting, really interesting, at least from an outside perspective, right, is that external, like larger community across, I mean, the whole of North America, right? So, I want to wrap it up a little bit with kind of what you're working on now and what you're, really passionate about. I know NAAIS was recently at the White House, so that's really exciting. What was that like? Where are you looking next?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our goals are to build an organization that can stand up for the collective interest for international Indians, right? By 2024 to 2025, some experts estimate that 200,000 students on F1 visas from India will increase to 400,000. Now, I don't know how far we'll get to that, but that's quite a lot. And that number is, expected to grow for at least the next 5-6 years for sure. So, what sort of impact do they have as F1 students contributing to the economy, contributing to, like society, contributing to local governance, etc., and making sure that, international students on top of the Indian American students that come here or are here, are able to feel that people are listening to them, their voices and issues are raised, because look, it's a struggle. We as international students take on that collective dream, right? We know we get ourselves into it, but I do think that the benefits we offer warrant a pretty good kind of at least warm and welcoming society / government. And it not to say that it isn't, but what can we constantly improve on? How can we make their experience better? So that's why we work with local, state, and national governments to make sure that, hey, these are these big issues, whether it's why is there such a big restriction on STEM OPT only for these specific courses, or the fact that, why can't students actually work while they're on an F1 visa? You're taking money from them, right? So why can't they actually receive that money as well? So those are like those national issues. But then when it comes to kind of safety and concerns and making sure that, we're able to provide if someone feels, that they are in danger, or if someone has been arrested, if someone, feels that they've been taken advantage of, how do we kind of mediate those concerns, whether it's through local or state officials? So kind of trying to work not just necessarily, in just civic engagement, but personal rights, and making sure that these students feel that, they have someone looking after them, and engaging them and making, that environment, whether at a local, state, or national level, much better than they've experienced.
Yeah, I think everybody needs an advocate, right? And I think what y'all are doing is really incredible for that community and for just, students generally, not just South Indian students, right? The being able to work on F1 visa is a really big challenge to navigate. So, I'll wrap it up here. There is so much more that we could talk about, and I'm sure you can learn a lot more about Sudhanshu and about NAAIS. We'll have all sorts of links in the descriptions along with this. If you want to check out some of the other videos that we've done, feel free to click all the links in the description or any of the cue cards that might pop up. We've got a lot of resources for students coming up, and we're really excited to continue having these conversations. So thank you again, Sudhanshu, for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Wilson.